Oh, no problem.
This being your 8th?
11th, dude. I've been here every year.
Yeah.
I start coming here. I mean, oh wait, are these answers that you want? Like, shall I wait for the camera when I?
The camera's on. Yeah.
Okay.
Camera's on. We're recording. We're good.
But no, I've been here every year. In the beginning, 2003, I worked for Central Park Media.
Yes. Yep.
So I was here as like an industry guest, like an industry rep, you know.
Oh, okay.
And then I've been
Damn
here.
Wikipedia.
Yeah. Wikipedia knows everything about everything.
It does.
So here's a Wikipedia story for you. This will be funny. So you know, I looked up rusty trombone once, and do you know what that is?
Of course.
Yeah, okay. So, and there's an explanation on Wikipedia, and it said, now I don't know if this is still there. I really kind of hope it is. I haven't checked it, but it attributed the coining of that phrase to Carol Spinney. Do you know who Carol Spinney is?
Yeah, the voice of Big Bird.
Big Bird.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
and Oscar the Grouch. Like, you know, who's like 75 years old now or something like that. But that, like in 1969, like there was like I guess like a gay intern who worked for, I think that's what the story was, because you don't have to be gay to rusty trombone, but it was like a gay intern that worked for Sesame Street, and he was talking all about his exploits the night before, and then Carol Spinney was listening and said, "Oh, so you gave the guy a rusty trombone," like that. That's the story on like where that came from.
It originates from Big Bird.
Yeah. So
I picture more Oscar the Grouch saying that.
Yeah, right. And that's, you know, I have to say I've met Carol Spinney, and unfortunately did not have the balls to ask him directly if like, is this true? But you know, I like to think it is.
Just look at her. Look at her. I'm sorry. Look at Carol and stuff and just go,
What was the inspiration of Snuffle? What drug was the inspiration of Snuffleupagus?
Yeah, there you go. So what's up?
I'm John Riley. I'm from the Boston Brigade and also Jacedown Studios. Throughout the years, there's been a lot of studios turning classic novels or classic stories into animation, such as, you know, of course, as we know when we were kids, Oliver Twist being turned into Oliver and Company, or in 2007, Shoujo Cassette, which is the anime version of Les Miserables. Would you ever want to, if somebody offered that to you, would you ever want to work on a project like that, where it's turning like, oh, we want to do an anime version of The Great Gatsby or something like that?
Oh, yes, absolutely, I would. I mean, you know, and here's the honest, boring mercenary answer, because it's a job. Okay, and you know, and if people who are in the habit of turning down work don't work for very long, but also, yeah, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, because I know from your background as far as your school and everything right there.
Yeah, that would be awesome. You know, provided. Well, listen, like I said, it's a job, and that's great. But also, you know, you want to have a decent interpretation too, because when you talk about things like that, let's say. Romeo and Juliet, okay? Now, Baz Luhrmann, you know, does, I think he does some fantastic work, and I think he does some very crappy work. And I do not like his Romeo and Juliet at all.
Which is weird, because I'm the opposite. I really enjoy it.
See, to me, it's all flash, it's all, you know,
It's
there's
all
no
style,
substance.
there's no substance.
Yeah.
Especially with Shakespeare, with where you need to find the heart and the beats inside Shakespeare.
Yeah,
it's just all a bunch of like,
plenty of
let's
good
see John
story
Leguizamo with a cool gun.
Right, there's plenty of good story there. You don't need to embellish too much. And the other thing is you have a lot of actors there who I think are just kind of end up like talking heads. Like
Mercutio, the guy that plays Augustus Hill from Oz.
I'm not certain they understand what they're saying, you know. But then you look at something like West Side Story, which is actually, I think, a fantastic interpretation of Romeo and Juliet. And obviously it makes a new musical and all this, but that puts it in a setting that helps people understand the story. The stumbling block that people have with Shakespeare is the language, and that's the only thing that Baz Luhrmann did not change. So it's still going to be confusing to people who find Shakespeare confusing, whereas West Side Story makes it more accessible. So, but I would love to do something like that. It would be fun. I mean, not to besmirch Pokemon that I work on all the time, which is fantastic, but it would be a nice change of pace.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Absolutely.
Switch it up and stuff right there, because you would probably get a new whole type of audience interested in the classic novels as far as right there. Like, well,
And the actors would go nuts. too,
yeah,
for it.
exactly. Oh, yes,
absolutely.
exactly. Getting their
You've worked
chance.
with so many talented voice actors, and
Yeah.
I know that they would be able to kick ass
Oh, yeah.
on it.
Really? You got a question?
Well, a little bit something, because you're in the Boston area right now, and you're always coming in fearless with the Yankees jersey.
Yeah.
And all. So how do you feel every time walking into Boston with the Yankees jerseys? Is there like, what sort of comments do you usually like over here? Do you get the whole Yankee suck thing?
People just say 2001, 2001.
Yeah, that, you know, I don't, like at Anime Boston here, you know, first of all, I'm surprised that any of these kids even know that it's a baseball jersey. No offense, Anime Boston kids. But no, you know, I mean, I've been here so long and they understand the whole shtick that we've got going on that, yeah, sometimes people say something, but it's all done in fun.
Yeah.
And out in the city, because I will wear the shirt out sometimes, you know, generally people, I get some looks, but nobody says anything, you know?
It's like, how dare he?
No, nobody says anything. You know, and I have to say, a couple years ago, I don't remember, it was 2-3 years ago, when Anime Boston was during Easter, and it was opening night for the baseball season, and the Yankees were playing the Red Sox. That was awesome, and they were playing them here. And that game, man, it was just back and forth, and the Yankees kind of had them, and Boston just swooped in there in the 9th inning and got the win. And I was at the Dead Dog party, the sort of wrap-up party that they have, and the whole bar just came down on me. They're all like, oh! You know, and just all night, you know. And it was a fantastic game, but like that was interesting because when the Yankees were in town, there was a ton of Yankee stuff around. So I'm wearing my Yankee stuff, and then I'm seeing other people with Yankees jerseys and hats and stuff, and they're like, yeah! You know, when they see me on the street. So, no, people don't give me shit about it. I have to be completely honest. I would love to see a game at Fenway, because it's just a classic park and everything. But I would not wear my Yankees jersey at Fenway, because I don't want stuff thrown at me. Because that, you're asking for trouble, you know? So...
It's a fine line, I guess.
Yeah,
Well,
walking around in town, people, every now and then somebody may give you a look, but I've never had anybody say anything to me. But, like, if, you know, I went to Fenway in my Yankees jersey, I think there's a decent chance that
A beer.
something would end up being dumped on me, which I don't want to do.
Expletives.
Expletives, whatever, man. That doesn't bother me. Just don't throw stuff at me.
Well, it could be worse. We could be Oakland Raiders fans.
I'm an
Yeah, right, sure.
I'm a Raiders fan, and I actually
or they'll just strip you naked and throw it, or beat
Throw
you
you
down
down
the
there.
parking lot or something. Yeah, I mean, so I'm smart enough to not do that. And people are trying to like harass me about the Rangers. You know, there's the Rangers and the Bruins, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're up
Knicks
3-1,
recently
whatever.
losing.
The game 5 is tomorrow. And they're trying to like about that, and I'm like, "What is this, Canada?" I'm like, "It's hockey. What do I care?" But
It's not a real sport. That's why I said yesterday.
Well, no.
Anything.
Listen,
That, you're from real. You're from New Jersey.
I got to tell you, no, and I'm just.
Are you a
joking,
Knicks
'cause
fan as well?
I am a Knicks fan.
Yeah,
I do like the Rangers, but you know, listen. I like the Bruins too. It's like those original 6 teams. You know what I mean? Yeah, you're always pulling for those guys. And honestly, I'm always pulling for Canadian teams because, I mean, that's
their sport.
That's their sport.
That's all they got.
Yeah.
They got that and curling. That's it. Just those 2 things.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, other than that.
But I'm a Knicks fan, and it was a great season, but, I mean, they fell apart against the Pacers, and now we're hearing
It's just a difficult
like,
setup.
that all these guys had all these injuries, apparently. I'm still...
It's tough with
It's good season.
Amari's injury because he'll never be back to what he was in Phoenix. And I kind of think he's a little bit of a crybaby-itis.
Amari's not the guy that they need.
Yeah, no,
anyway. He doesn't blend with
They need
Carmelo.
to they need to just take Carmelo and then build the team around Carmelo. But
Yeah.
sorry.
So, yeah. So, what else?
What he said.
Yeah.
Build it around Carmelo. He's the guy.
Okay, tell me the truth.
Yeah.
Is there or is there not a hidden audio tape of Pokemon characters in the recording studio swearing? Like the actors themselves getting mad when they're recording.
Of course there's
Is it like a
outtakes.
Thundercats kind of thing that will come out on the internet?
I ran into Larry Kenny last month in New York, the guy who plays Lionel. And he's sort of a dirty old man, that guy. Because I've been at conventions with him, you know, like, I don't know, this was maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, like down in Atlanta, and spent time with him, and he was very funny. But yeah, of course, I mean, everybody messes up, and then when they do, sometimes I'll be like, save, you know. But I mean, you know, those don't, like, those are for internal use only.
That's like a private party.
Yeah. I mean, and that's, you know, because sometimes it's honest mistakes, but sometimes people will just make a joke, you know. And there are certain things that I have shown the ones that are less dirty, I guess, because there are some of the actors who just go to places, but then there's other ones where you see an image that it just begs an outtake. So there's one in particular that when the character Brock was still in the show, because Brock's been out of the show for the last few years, and it's something where they lost all their Pokemon, they're in the Pokeballs, and they're all like, they finally get them all back, and he grabs this pair, and the actor does this, and it was hilarious. Bill Rogers is the guy who was playing him at the time, and he's like, "My balls!" And it's so funny because it looks like that's what he should be saying. So that's like one of my favorite outtakes that isn't really nasty, because there's nasty outtakes that are very funny. But, and every show, I mean, that's the thing. It is basically a kid's show, but it is made by adults.
And you're dealing with a lot of balls comments a lot too.
Well, so. There's unintentional humor that sometimes works its way in there. That actually they are careful to try and avoid. But it's
Do you or anybody that works the show ever have some fun with playing like the Pokemon video games and like getting into that at all, or in your free time at all?
My kids have like the DS games, and I don't have them, and I don't really play them. I've tried their games, and I can see how it would be really addictive, because that's what I've heard from people who aren't video game people. They pick up the Pokemon games, and then they're like,
must catch them all.
It's just, I've got to level this guy up, and then he's going to evolve, and then, and there's new games that they've announced that are going to come out in October. Do
you use the games to influence you guys at all? Like
the show follows the games generally. Like that's for the last few games. So like we're currently doing Pokemon Black and White, and it more or less follows what's going on in the game in terms of you start in this city,
and work your way to this
gym. This is the first gym, and the second gym, and the third gym. So in the show, that's the first, second, third gym that Ash faces. I mean, it's not always like that, but it usually is, and there's things that they change. But I mean, they want the property to be kind of a cohesive thing. So like the show, the games, the cards, they want the rules to be the same.
I guess that touches into my next question. How much creative control do you have to mess with that norm and do your own thing with the storylines?
There are rules, like that whatever electric type attacks don't work on ground type creatures. You know what I mean? And
work well against water. You have to,
and those rules are set up because that feeds into the strategy, like Ash's strategy when he battles somebody. Occasionally the show, I think, fudges something for dramatic purposes, maybe allows this attack to be maybe more effective than it would have just for dramatic purposes, and you kind of have to. But again, that's something that is in the show, like in the translation in the Japanese. It's not something that we choose to change a thing,
right.
So we don't do that. We more or less honor their decisions.
Do you still come across an episode, because I know some of the earlier Pokemon episodes, there were some that they couldn't air in America because of some issues whatsoever. Do you still come across some of these episodes from time to time in the newer ones?
Not really, because the show is made with an international audience in mind. Like any anime that has dreams of big dollar signs, they do it with the international audience in mind. That's I mean, certainly shows like Yu-Gi-Oh!, any of the shows that are selling card games and things like that. But a lot of shows do it with that in mind. So that being said, you won't run into certain issues. There were the episodes that caused seizures, and that was like a technical thing that they never realized would happen. And since then, there are QC procedures in place to test for that kind of thing, and it has to do with weird patterns. Like if what pattern is on the walls on certain type of TVs might give a kind of effect that could potentially trigger a thing. So there's now machines that test the levels of different patterns, and then if they get rejected, they have to go back and fix it. So there's stuff like that that happens, but like content-wise, we don't really run into issues, and they will change things potentially. Like in Japan, every now and then they'll deliver us an episode, and then they'll be like, "Oh wait, you know what? We're going to go back and fix a thing that they want to fix." I mean, the one that everybody knows about is there were episodes that were pulled when there was the big tsunami and earthquake in Japan, because there were episodes that sort of dealt with something similar. So they're like, we're not going to show these, and they put them away. And but Pokemon was by far not the only show that did that. There were I'd say at least a dozen shows that were running in Japan that decided, you know, we're not going to air these. I mean, it's the same thing when 9/11 happened here.
Yep.
There were a bunch of movies that suddenly went on the shelf, and
or they took out the Twin Towers in certain movies.
Well, there were things like that, or they just like, hey, this movie features a hijacked airplane. We're not going to show this right now. And then
did they take it out of
Grand Theft
Auto?
Like, you know, the next year, and then it would come out the following year or whatever, you know. So.
It's kind of like what happened with the Tentacool and Tentacool episode from season 1, because that one's an episode that they had to pull because of 9/11, because of them destroying buildings that kind of looked like New York City.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, you know, things happen, but I mean, nothing major because again, they, you know, when they're making the episodes in Japan, they are thinking with more of an international market. You know, yeah.
Has there ever been something you had an idea for to take the franchise in a certain direction that the powers that be kind of
no way. We don't have any of that sort of control. I mean,
I was curious if you ever like had like, oh, this would be awesome.
This big monstrous corporation. Oh, listen, you know.
No, they're paying. I mean,
when everybody sort of, you know, has their like fantasies about like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if like, you know, what if Misty came back, but suddenly she was this powerful thing, and then she was Ash's rival, and blah blah blah, you know, or whatever.
Yeah, I want Brock back. Bring Brock back.
That they're all and they all have to battle each other. But
this is
Pokemon is, you know, Ash doesn't age. You know what I mean? It's been going on now.
It's like The Simpsons,
16, 17 years, and that's the thing. It's like an evergreen property is what they like to call it, where you could sort of drop in at any point and kind of follow what's going on, because. If you acknowledge the passing of time too much, it changes the show. Which, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and it ain't broke. So you know, so there's things like that people would have these fantasies of all of the great, you know, rivals or guest characters or sidekicks coming together, or doing like a Ben 10 thing and be like, you know what, now they're all 15. But that really changes the nature of the show, and it's been very successful. So there's kind of no reason to do that. But you know, you'd like to think that. Okay, so if the show ever ends, that they have some epic thing and you meet Ash's father or something, you know, because there's like, you know,
it's
Pikachu evolves,
right, or something like that.
Yeah, finally Raichu. Yeah,
would happen in like a final episode. But if something like that happened, it would kind of have to be over.
Yeah.
You know? I guess it wouldn't have to be, but it would make like that would be a nice time to, you know, save it for this epic finale. And, you know, I mean, hell, I hope the show never ends, okay? Because I like working on it.
Amen.
But if it does...
For your sake, knock on wood, yeah.
But if it does, let's hope they make some giant epic event out of it.
Yeah, they should.
So,
kind of like what they just did with all the Power Rangers, having all the Power Rangers come back from all 20 seasons.
You know,
or what Turtles Forever was for the Turtles.
See, well, Turtles Forever was funny because they were like, just the making of that, it took forever. No pun intended. And they were like trying to make it for like the 25th anniversary.
Yeah,
which
they
was
wanted to come out right away.
April, I think, but they missed it. And it ended up coming out.
And then the movie didn't really get a lot of promotion when it did come out.
And then I remember when it was coming out for Comic-Con, and they were like calling me in for something. And it was like, I think it was like the very beginning of July. And I'm like, Comic-Con is this month, you know? And they're like, yeah, so we're fixing this thing. And I'm like, okay. You know, because I just did some, like, it was background stuff where I was auditioning actually for one of the characters they had to replace. But
do you know why they ended up having to replace some of the original actors?
Well, the original actors, I mean...
Like, are some of them
I don't even know if I don't know who all of them are, but this part of it would have been a union, non-union issue. Mm-hmm. You know, if they wanted to produce the movie non-union, you wouldn't have been able to get those guys. But if you were going to make it a union production and it was all original animation,
what part were you auditioning for?
Like, I think it was 1984 Donatello.
Oh, interesting.
Ooh,
I think it's
the original black and white Donatello.
Yeah. You know, the badass ones.
The badass,
I think that's
Mirage,
because I read for some other ones too, like the 1988, like, you know, the goofy ones were like, you know, everybody sounds like Fred from Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
It's like, hi, I'm a turtle. You know.
See, that was one of my problems with the movie, that they didn't show enough respect to the '80s turtles and their different personality traits, because I felt like they did have different personality traits in the show, whereas in that movie they were just all grouped as, oh, they're always silly, you know. But even though there was some funny stuff that happened with that, like, look, we have to save April again. But
and Yu-Gi-Oh did something similar. We had the 10th anniversary 3D movie. They brought the 3 leads from the 3 Yu-Gi-Oh series all together. and because in that I played Crow.
I love you.
Who
I
is
love Yu-Gi-Oh!
who is the Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds? He's like one of the main sidekicks to the lead in that. So I was in that movie, which was funny because they just sort of show up in the beginning and they're like, "Hey, Yusei, what's that thing?" And then Yusei's like, "Oh, I got it," and he disappears, and then they're like, "Where did he go?" And then at the end, it's like, "You're back!" Like that was, and the three leads have this giant adventure. But that was kind of a cool thing where they brought all those together. And it was also fun because they did like a big theatrical release. I mean, not a big nationwide release, but they made it an event, and it was kind of a fun thing.
Can you talk at all about the pilot that you're working on right now? I saw, according to Twitter.
No, you're right. I'm trying. I work on a lot of stuff.
You were working on a feature.
I work on a lot of stuff that isn't anime. Most of the stuff. Well, I mean, Pokemon is always there. But then I work on all this other stuff. So I just finished a feature called Bunta, which is... We did it sort of 50-50, like some of it was animated and some of it we did prelay and they're animating to us. The character design and the animation is beautiful and it's awesome. It's going to be 3D. That may get a theatrical run here, I'm not sure. It's definitely getting a theatrical run in China, where they're doing the animation and they're promoting the hell out of it. To sell anything international has to be in English. So that's, they're going to take this and push it all over the world. I think it'll probably end up on Netflix here. It looks fantastic. So that, we just finished. There's another feature I'm starting this week that's sort of like it reminds me of like Harry Potter, but instead because there's the three main kids that sort of have that Harry, Ron, Hermione relationship.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The triads.
But the lead kid is going to get like superpowers and stuff. Although even he's really kind of like timid and awkward, and even when he gets superpowers, he's still real timid and awkward. And I'm playing bad guys in that. I get a lot of bad guy parts, and that I'm directing. And that we're starting this week, and that's being done in India. But we're doing it prelay, so we're gonna lay down the voices, and they're gonna animate to us, and that's always great when you get prelay work because it's real freedom with the acting,
It gives you a chance to improvise here and there.
I think the pilot thing. Okay, the pilot thing it's actually the show for like little kids, like preschool. It's very basic, simple,
Farms and talking cows and stuff.
Exactly. There is a talking cow. It is, so that is actually, it's very cute and very simple, and it's a different kind of thing, but again, like, it's work, and I'm just happy to work on whatever. So, like, that is the pilot thing that we're working on. And I did that, and I just did some stuff for this other project. It's a stop motion thing, which, do you know the Heat Miser?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I recorded the Heat Miser. This guy.
Really?
Yeah, and it was so cool because his name is George Irving, and he's really old, and he's really big. And I didn't, he came in, I had no idea who he was, and and it's this stop-mo project that I've been working on over the course of a long period of time with these guys who do a lot of stop motion, and they do a lot of commercial work, but they do stuff in features and things like that, and I'm sure everybody's seen their work and stuff. And they're really good. But this is like a labor of love they're doing on the side. So when they have time,
passion projects,
because stop-mo takes forever, to do, but it looks so good.
Intricate Harryhausen.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So,
God bless his soul.
Right? So they had this guy come in, and he's like, I'm here to, and I'm hearing his voice, and I'm like, wow, that's really familiar, but okay, whatever. So he comes in, and they're talking to him. He's like, so I'm gonna start doing cartoon stuff, all the goofy voices for you, and they're like, well, it's more like a stop motion thing, like with the little models, like the Heat Miser. And I just thought that they're throwing that out there. It's like, like that, And then they get him in the booth, and he starts doing stuff, and he's playing the bad guy. It's this gritty cop, like 70s cop story, except all the characters are food. It's very good. And
aren't you glad that I got over there, sir?
So he's playing like the bad guy, but then they're like, we also want you to do like a background character, this like street musician dude who's going to be sitting there singing and outside of like on the street corner near the lead cop's house, and he'll like throw a quarter in your thing as he goes by, and And he's like, oh, okay. And they're like, he's like, you think you could sing some of the Heat Miser song? And then all of a sudden I'm like, this is the Heat Miser. And he's like, what was great, because like, can you sing the Heat Miser song? And he's like, what's the Heat Miser song? And then we're like, oh, and everybody in the room starts singing it. Yeah, he's Mr. Heat Miser. And he's kind of like, whoa, were we like selling boilers or something? Because, and I get where he's coming from, because it wasn't like he was this senile old guy, far from it. But, I get asked at conventions about like, do you remember in Yu-Gi-Oh! Season 4 and you did this thing? And I'm like, no, I don't. And this was some little thing he did like, 45 years ago or more. He was a Broadway actor. I think he's got a couple of Tony Awards, this guy.
Awesome.
So like, so this was just this little side thing that he did once upon a time. But then
Heat Miser. Okay, I'm done.
We showed him the video online, and he's like, oh, yeah, that, okay. And then he started to remember, oh, and this guy played this thing, and blah, blah, blah. And then he did it, and then he sang it, and it was fantastic. And I saved that. I played it actually out at my panel earlier. I'm like, listen to this, Yeah, he sang it, and then he did, because they were like, can you do some other song? And he sort of improv'd out this song called He's Screwing Dolores Del Rio, which is like this... It's this like kind of bawdy song from the 1930s about like, if you've come calling on some man, well, he's busy, he's screwing Dolores Del Rio. And it's like his butler explaining why he can't come to the door. And it goes through this whole list of all these 1930s movie actresses that he's going to be banging for the next 24 hours. It is very funny. And this guy just sort of like, oh, here, boom, and just dropped this on us.
Acting.
Yeah. This guy was fascinating. When you work with real pros, I mean, it is, guys like this are on a different level. I mean, he hadn't seen the script. He came in, they gave him the script, and he was like, oh, okay, whatever. And he just let it rip, and he never made a mistake. He never stumbled on a word, nothing. It was unbelievable. And this guy was just rattling off. And the animation director guy was like reading with him back and forth, and he just went, and we were like looking at each other. Never made a mistake, and didn't give us a bad take. And this, who knows how old this guy is, but I mean, and he's just, this is what he does, and that's it. He was perfect.
They don't make him like that anymore.
Yeah.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
There's a, how do you feel about parodies on Pokemon? There's a, on YouTube, Machinima released a series called Teenage Pokemon by a video game blogger or whatever, reviewer for Destructoid, called Teenage Pokemon. And it's them growing up as teenagers, and they're like, and it's in a very adult kind of thing. You have like Squirtle.
Or Nick Cage Pokemon. Have you seen that by chance? It's every Pokemon with Nick Cage's face.
Really?
It's ridiculous.
That sounds fun.
My girlfriend loves that.
I mean, listen, I don't take any of that stuff personally, and I don't care.
Oh no, not that you should.
No, but and like, parody, you get a lot of leeway when you're doing parody stuff. Like, Robot Chicken makes fun of Pokemon sometimes, and that's great. They can totally get away with it. It's just, as long as nobody's breaking any laws, then it's okay. And if they are, the Pokemon company will probably, well, that's not, we have the production contract.
Oh, no, I know.
You know what I mean? So, but, oh, no, I know what you're saying. But, like, that's why, like, we just have the production contract, but I know that the Pokemon company is protective of their brand, as they should be. So if somebody crosses a line, and if you, like Pokemon, they chase down people on YouTube all the time who are breaking copyright violations. I was telling this story earlier, even like the girl, Sarah, the girl who plays Ash and has played Ash for like the last, 7 years or whatever, she has a demo. She has like an animation demo of her work that has like video clips of things, and she had that when she first put it up off her website, and it's, she's not selling anything, she's just using it to promote herself, whatever, it's like just an extension of her resume. Yeah. And she had it linked to YouTube, and they shut down the link.
Wow.
And they didn't, but the thing is they weren't going after her.
They were just going after
They were just like, oh, this is Pokemon on YouTube, this person doesn't own it, boop, gone. So they weren't, it wasn't like a personal thing with her, it's just because that's the law, technically, so if you're not breaking those laws, that's cool.
You can't do a production like Smosh, the guys on YouTube, they did a full song and sang it, and they took it down, so they made a song to the tune of that, making fun of.
Right.
It's like when Weird Al, when Eminem wouldn't let Weird Al do his video, so he just put a boombox where he played the song and he went like this.
Yep. Yeah.
The whole time.
But I mean, that's the thing is some of the kids who do that stuff are really funny and creative, and I know there's that. What the hell is that girl's name? Brizzy, who does this girl. Her name is Brizzy or something. Brizzy Voices, and she does all this Pokemon stuff, and you know, and they get like there's a lot of following to all that, and in the one sense, it is good because it just. It feeds more to the fandom. It brings people back.
Just like when South Park did an episode in the second season.
The Chimp Pokemon thing.
Yeah, the Chimp Pokemon thing. It just helped bring it more more.
And it also, you know, perpetuated the true stereotype of the big American penis.
Oh, no problem, no problem. Last couple of questions. Do you enjoy playing a bad guy or a good guy better? And you said you were talking about playing a villain. Is it you know delicious playing a bad guy sometimes?
Okay, so and again, here's you know the blunt boring answers.
I get a paycheck.
The good guys book more hours, so it's fun to play a good guy in that sense. But the bad guys are always more fun. The characters.
Yeah, you can get as an actor, you can get more meat into
it's all the
stuff.
character
They're louder.
stuff.
They're
you know,
more alive.
Yeah, when you look at look at the Oscars every year, the best supporting actor roles are always so much more fun and cooler.
The Philip Seymour Hoffman type roles.
Yeah,
then
the lead actor roles, which are amazing roles and obviously bigger roles, and those guys might be pulling in a bigger check, but ultimately the character's not as much fun. So I get a lot of bad guy and sidekick work.
Yeah, that's.
So when I get a hero, I'm like, hey, look at this, I'm a hero, you know, which doesn't happen often. But I have a new, there's a new thing coming up, a video game called Gangstar Vegas. It's a mobile game, which I play like a sidekick guy who was actually lots of fun. So that's coming up, and the lead guy in it, who's voiced by Sean Schemmel, who voices Goku. He's like he's a Southie. Oh, yeah. So you know, Sean, and they kept the accent.
So he's like, you know, dude, I'm from Southie. Yeah.
He's not too far, but he is a little bit of a Southie.
Bastards.
Yeah. So
he's hamming it up and stuff.
Yep.
Would you ever want to sing in your? Sorry.
That's good.
Would you ever want to, like, since you were in a band and you toured around and stuff and you did would you ever, like, fellow guest and Self Greg Ayers was the voice of, I can't remember his name, I'm sorry, I'm blanking on the lead character. Koyuki from Beck, Mongolian.
Oh man, I would love to do some sort of musical cartoon thing. I would love to do that.
I know that's right up your alley as far as being able, because that's like a double, like, you know, kind of excitement for you, because not only are you would be playing the lead character, but also you would be able to, like, get back into singing and whatnot. And
that you know what, that's go back to something that you asked me, like, if I could create my own Pokemon episode, I would want to do a musical episode of Pokemon.
Like kind of like the Scrubs episode where it's suddenly
or like the Buffy episode,
yeah.
Something like that. That's what I think what I would want to do. I think it would be so much fun to be in and to direct. But I would love to do something like that. You know, I remember I've come really close to like booking theme songs on a couple of shows, but never, you know, I was like always
a few steps off.
Yeah, like there was the show Tai Chi Chasers.
Yep.
That I played this character Finn in.
Finn, yeah, the name of your son.
I was so close to nailing the theme song on that, and then like the producer of the show ended up singing it, and I'm like, oh. But it was also a woman, and then it's like, okay, because right there it's like if they picked another dude, I could be like, oh, it's better than that dude. But they pick a woman, I'm like, okay, I can't sound like her, you know. And this other show, Huntic, apparently I was like, it was down to me and one other guy.
Huntic?
Yeah, Huntic.
I've heard of that.
Huntic it's another show about a card game, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you ever get out to gig and play these days?
Rarely, but occasionally. And like this summer, I'm really trying to get a thing together because I have a birthday coming up in July that is a milestone.
35?
No. So I really want to do a gig for that. Like a friend of mine who's a producer that I worked with on some stuff when he turned 40, he had this big gig where he played and stuff. So that's what I'm going to try and do this summer. So yeah, and you know, every now and then I do, like a few times a year at least, I have something, you know, that I put together. But I am going for that in July. So
right on.
We'll see.
Do you want to ask my last question?
So the final question I've been asking a lot of voice actors is, if you were stuck on a deserted island, which 3 characters that you portrayed in the past would you like to have around you into your imminent rescue, and why?
Characters that I've played or I've directed?
You know what? Let's do both.
You can do
we
both,
were having issues with Stephanie because she was having a hard time with it.
So, if I was on a deserted island, who would I want to have with me? Okay. I would want to have Silent from Pokemon with me, because Silent cooks real well. And the other thing is, like, I don't know where he keeps all his cooking gear and his camping gear and his dining wear.
Like the Sports Billy backpack.
Something, you know?
It's like Felix the Cat's magic bag.
Yeah, basically, that all like they're walking along and all of a sudden there's like a table with all like 5 place settings on it and he's cooking on, you know. So like that guy would really come in handy.
Yeah,
you know, and he's a Pokemon connoisseur, and so whatever. He's a foodie kind of guy. So I think it would be good to have him around. I think to throw in a guy that I played, you'd want to have Storm Shadow there.
Yeah.
Because you know, who's gonna mess with you then? You know what I mean? Like that right there. You know, if there was any danger,
no black smoke monster's gonna mess with you.
Yeah, he's basically gonna put it in.
The army versus Storm Shadow.
Storm Shadow would whoop them, and they would never see it coming. That's the whole thing. That's the there was a show on the History Channel about like Deadliest Warrior, and it was like like ninja versus Spartan, and they have him like on an open field of combat. I'm like, well, duh, like the ninja would kill a Spartan while he was sleeping. I'm like, that's why they're ninjas. They don't run out onto the battlefield. I'm like, what does the black do for you then? You know? Yeah. So anyway, so I would go with Storm Shadow for my second one, and my third one, I would have to say probably some really like one of the hot chicks from maybe one of the hentais I've worked on, because you gotta have somebody to talk to, right?
Yeah.
So
You need someone for those alone. You need to repopulate the population somehow.
Just someone to talk to, play checkers with, things like that. Just discuss philosophy.
Play marbles.
Yes, exactly. So, there you go.
Awesome. Tom Wayland, thank you so much for joining
Hey,
us.
thank you guys. It was fun. It was great to see you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
It was great to meet you, dude.
All right.